Hey people, how y'all doing out there? Welcome to episode 2 of the Football Frame of Mind podcast. Your co-host Cam here with my other co-host Brandon. How you doing today, bro?
Doing all right. How about you, man?
I'm good. Ready to talk some college football today?
Oh, yes, sir.
All right, cool. All right, so we're gonna get right into it. Got a lot to talk about today. So my first question to you, man, first topic today is conference realignment, man. How you feel about it?
It to me, it's kind of a mixed bag of chips. So there's a lot of things I like, and there's parts of it I don't like. And I guess we'll get into like teams moving in a little while. But as of like just a opinion, I don't see anything wrong with college football realignment. I think as long as it's kind of like how we said the playoff and everything last time, how as long as it's structured right, to
Right.
where we're not having overpowered conferences and because there's a lot of talk of certain conferences liquidating and stuff like that, and to where it's just like two really big conferences, and I think that would be worst case scenario. But I really have a good feeling about it because some of these other teams that maybe weren't on the main stage before, now they get to be on the main stage competing against other teams and getting opportunities that they wouldn't have had before. But I could definitely see how it could go bad. But I mean, I have a good feeling about it for the most part.
Okay. Well, all right. I agree with you. I think the little teams will be able to get, go into these conferences like San Diego State, for example, going I think to maybe the Pac-12,
Hmm.
maybe. So if they're going to the Pac-12, that's good because that's a boost in revenue, and um, be a good chance for them to kind of get the notoriety because there's a lot of good players that came from that school, for example.
Hmm.
But like I said, I feel like conference realignment's a good thing for college football. It's been around for a long time. I mean, people moving conference since the '80s, since before then. Shoot, people
Hmm.
don't even know for real that Georgia Tech was in the SEC at one time. You know what I'm
That was
saying?
a
So,
long time ago.
right? You know what I'm saying? They had a school called Swanee University that was in the SEC at one
That's
time.
a
You know what I'm
major
saying?
throwback.
Throwback, right? And that's like the best team in the history of college football that don't nobody really know. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
But for a good stretch, they ran the SEC. You know what I'm saying? Now
Hmm.
you go into conference realignment, right? That's why those schools kind of left. Obviously Georgia Tech going to the ACC at one point, right? So I think the history of it is it's always been a positive thing, but as we move forward in the future, I think it's hurting the game a little bit because the moves aren't always good for the sport. Like, because we think about just for a football perspective, right? But like, what about the lacrosse team? You know what I'm saying? They got to move to another conference too because the football team moving, right?
Hmm.
So those are things that people don't really understand that maybe it hurts the other sports in a sense. But keeping it just football, I think it's hurting football in a sense because there are so many it's kind of more money driven, like I'd say it that way. To
Hmm.
where it's not really good for the product because you're taking rivalries away. Like USC going to the Big Ten in a couple years. You know what I'm saying? Like geographically, that makes no sense at all. But
Hmm.
money wise, it makes a lot of sense because the Pac-12 is going through some tough times right now to the point where they having trouble with their TV deals and stuff, right? So Big Ten's having trouble with their TV deals. So all of this conference realignment, it might just be smoke and mirrors at the end of the day because
Hmm.
all these TV deals, which are the reason for the realignment, are not even set in stone yet. So when you think about bigger picture, like what are you really moving for? Is it for competition, which I agree with? You know what I'm saying? If going back in time to Miami going to the ACC, leaving the Big East, right? For a
Hmm.
competition standpoint, that made sense. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
You're going where the other, Florida schools are at the time. You're going where your hotbed is, where your where your fan base is, where you can constantly, keep growing, right? And monetarily, it was good too because the ACC got a boom. You know what I'm saying, with Miami coming in there. So when you think about those things from a historical standpoint, it works. It works, but you have to understand if it's a good move. So getting in a conference realignment, what do you feel about the historical significance of it? Do you like how it's transformed college football or not?
I feel like I do because I mean it creates up until now with how you brought up like the money and things like that. I feel like for the most part up until that point, I think money played a part in it, but a lot of it is trying to deepen, I guess the traditions and trying to grow and get bigger. A lot of these teams are leaving for better competition to try to have a fresh start. Or maybe they're thinking, okay, maybe we're struggling with recruiting. Maybe we're struggling to find the players we want, or maybe the coaches we're trying to get a hold of. Maybe we need to get a fresh start and maybe join a new conference. So, I mean, for the most part, no, I think conference realignment's a really good thing. It gives colleges and players a better opportunity to maybe reach heights they couldn't before, or play other teams they couldn't before, and get put opportunities that maybe they couldn't have before. I mean, obviously, every situation is going to have pros and cons,
Right.
but from a historical standpoint, no, I think conference realignment is really beneficial for the most part.
It's funny you mentioned that. Teams in a sense, right? Getting a chance to play, but I think when you mentioned that, I instantly thought of recruiting.
Mm-hmm.
A recruiting base that maybe a team couldn't get to, but since they joined the conference or whatever, I instantly go to Arkansas, leaving the Southwest Conference and going to the SEC. Like I think
Mm-hmm.
that opened up a whole different, base of recruiting. Like they obviously dominated in Texas, right? And or
Mm-hmm.
Arkansas, obviously that's their state or whatever, and maybe into places like Tennessee or whatever, right? But going to the SEC, I think, allowed them to kind of venture into places like Florida or Georgia or we even go Alabama for some players,
Mm-hmm.
Louisiana for sure. Like I think anybody who's in their right mind will recruit there. But I
Oh
think
yeah.
realignment has definitely had an effect on recruiting because I don't think certain teams would make certain moves if it wasn't, you know, about recruiting at the end of
If
the
it
day.
wasn't beneficial for that, yeah, definitely.
Like Nebraska comes to mind too. Leaving the Big 12 to go to the Big 10, I was
Mm-hmm.
like back when I was like an actual like player, I was like, okay, cool, right? They're going, kind of a mid-state kind of thing, central to the US kind of thing. I'm like, all right, it fits, right? But as I got older and I started thinking about it, I was like, I don't know, man. That don't really make sense now that I think about it, because
Not really.
Nebraska was Big 12 forever, Big 8 actually, So for them
Mm-hmm.
to leave, like I felt like that hurt them in recruiting more so than they thought it would, you know.
It's translated to the field, man. You can tell by the
Right,
product putting out the last decade or so. It's not the same team. I mean,
right.
if they were still in the Big 12, whether it be like with a lot of air raid teams or not, they would be getting their hands on players from Texas, from Oklahoma. You probably still would be getting guys from Louisiana if you're not getting any right now. I think that's definitely hurt them, and I think what they haven't been relevant for, man, 5, 10 years. They haven't been really like they're not meant to be in the Big Ten. If it's just
Yeah,
my opinion.
yeah, it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit at all. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's funny you say that, like, haven't been relevant and it shows on the field. It really does. Like, I think they, the athletes they had when they were in their heyday didn't really translate to a triple option, but they was
Mm-hmm.
blowing people out of the water. What athletes running a triple option? I think
Mm-hmm.
you could easily do that now. You know what I'm saying? As long as you got the athletes to do it. You know what I'm saying? Like every quarterback they had was probably in the Heisman candidate at some point.
Yeah. But
At some
even
point.
before that, even after they stopped running the triple option, they could run an air raid offense, like a spread offense in the Big 12 and succeed.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
Big Ten, you're going against guys like Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan. Like, you don't have the athletes that those
Yeah.
guys are getting.
Like a
You fare
different
so much
kind of
better to be
athlete
Big
too.
12.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
like a different kind of athlete too. Like, this ain't your dad's Big Ten either. Like the
No.
Big Ten is recruiting in Florida too. So,
Oh, they recruit in the Southeast. Whatever guys that Bama and LSU and Georgia not getting, they've got their hands in that pool too.
yeah, exactly.
Definitely.
You know what I'm saying? So like I like I said, it just didn't work out for me. After I started really paying attention to college football, I didn't understand
Mm.
that move either. Which is
There's a lot of
why
teams like
uh,
when you sit down and think about it.
like when I think about Notre Dame, how they flirted with how every sport except football is in the ACC. Like that doesn't fit to me. Like
Yeah,
when I was growing up, I actually thought them as a Big Ten school.
I've been and there have been rumors that if Notre Dame were to leave independence, that they would want to go to the Big Ten, but the deal would have to be so crazy for them to, because they just feel hell bent on keeping football in independence. And I mean, hey, there's nothing wrong with that. It's different,
No,
But
it's
I mean,
worked for
but
years.
But if they were to go to the Big Ten, they'd be getting even better recruits. They can pull recruits, but they're trying to bank off of their name. And I'm sorry, that name hasn't been relevant. Brian Kelly did a really good job, but if you take that out of there, I mean, the last relevant coach was Lou Holtz, and that was in the mid 80s. I mean, that was
Right.
a little while ago.
That was their last championship. The last
Mm-hmm.
one, man. So like you right about that, man. But I think a lot of their troubles in recruiting, to me, stems from the fact that the school is, for lack of a better word, the school is like hard to get into.
It's the academic standards. That's why Brian Kelly struggled to get a lot of recruits, because I mean, it's hard to find. It's not impossible, but to get a top 25 class with those kind of academic standards, it's damn near
Exactly.
impossible.
Exactly.
And there's no disrespect to them, but that's been hindering them, because
Yeah.
when you don't have that name to fall back on like you used to, I mean, that's hard, man,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. The academic standards is, I think, a big problem, you know what I'm saying, for them. I mean,
Mhm.
it keeps the school itself esteemed. Like if
Yeah.
you're a journalist or if you're a medical person or whatever, it keeps the
Hmm.
school
In high
esteemed, right?
regards. Hmm.
Exactly. But if you're a football player, you're probably not majoring in brain science. If
Anything
we're
like that,
Yeah,
typically.
if we're being honest, you're not going to be doing that if you're going to this school, right? Like, yeah, you
Hmm.
have cases, Florida State had a guy, on the one of those biggest Rhodes Scholar. He's a brain surgeon right now. But how many
Hmm.
of those cases have we seen, in
It's a very small minority.
exactly, exactly. So when you think about that, seeing Brian Kelly succeed in year one really wasn't a surprise for me. Him going to
No, because
LSU.
he's got the tools. He's
He's
obviously got the
literally won
intangibles
everywhere. He's won
now,
everywhere.
but we're kind of getting crazy. But to your point, you got to think the guy's got all the intangibles. He goes to a power five. I can't even say a power five, but you go to a former powerhouse like Notre Dame, and it's pretty much like he's being shackled down. Now you go to the SEC with one of the premier teams that can get recruits if you have someone that can recruit. He's a hell of a recruiter, and you got all the talent in your backyard. You don't have to go anywhere if you don't want to. You can
Right,
stay in the state, and you'd have a full recruiting class. You'd have a top 5 recruiting class just off of Louisiana.
right, right. You know what I'm saying? So that that right there, you give a guy that's had success everywhere he's been, like a new brand of toys to play with, like,
Mhm.
like he probably like, oh my god, I haven't seen these athletes
Mhm.
ever. Like
And that goes into what we were saying about the conferences. These guys are wanting to jump conferences. A lot of these teams want to jump conferences because they've hit their ceiling or they know they can only go so far. Like, let's just say, for instance, Colorado's in rumors to join the Big 12 in 2024.
again,
Now, he's getting a bunch of guys through the portal. But imagine if they go back to the Big 12. You're not having to lean on the portal so heavy. And you're getting a good bunch of recruits from Texas or wherever else as well, because now you can compete more. You're not able to compete as much in the Pac 12 because of USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington, teams like that. So, I mean, it definitely benefits a lot of teams for sure.
true. But if Colorado leaves the Pac-12, right, and comes to the
Mm-hmm.
Big 12, what is actually left of the Big 12, in my opinion, because of Texas and OU leaving? What
Mm-hmm.
kind of conference is that?
The
You
Big
know?
12?
Yeah, like what kind of conference is that? Because if you not keep in mind that OU and Texas are leaving to the
Yeah.
SEC, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Colorado joining them, if they weren't leaving, kind of feels like them getting the band back together, right? You're almost getting that conference back to where it was, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But now, since you're leaving, what kind of conference is that? With those two powerhouse teams that have been kind of blue bloods for that conference forever. You
Mm-hmm.
know, like I don't know if Colorado can bring stability to that conference, just them coming back. Even if they have a great
Mm-hmm.
season under Dion this first year, I don't think you can save that conference from becoming group of five in a sense.
No, I mean, and the Big 12 is getting an overhaul. So if we look at it like this, so you're going to lose Texas and Oklahoma after this season. Obviously, they're going to go to the SEC.
Right.
Cool. Going into now, you got new teams coming into the Big 12 as of July of this year. You're getting BYU, you're getting
Okay.
Cincinnati, you're
Okay.
getting Central Florida and Houston. So you're going to get those four teams back. So
Okay.
even when Texas and Oklahoma leave, you're going to fill in and have 12 teams. And
Mhm.
then there's rumored 2024, you're going to get Colorado and Arizona to lead the Pac 12 and possibly join as well.
Mm.
So, I mean, you'll get
Okay.
the number. You just might not have it's. I think it's going to take a little while to grow on people because obviously when you think Big 12, you think Texas, Oklahoma. It's the two powerhouse teams. But I
Mhm.
think over time, I think they're going to try to reinvent themselves with some of these other teams. And
Mm.
I think it'll be kind of cool to see like who's going to take the reins and be like, okay, well they're gone. Who's going to take the reins and say, okay, this is our conference, or we're going to be a perennial like conference champion or competing for that, you know?
Okay. No, no, I see that. I can see that. I can see that. I like how you incorporated that because BYU has always been kind of an outlier. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
They've had some good runs in the history of their football program, including the national
Mm-hmm.
championship, by the way. So I wouldn't be surprised. I think you're right. It'll grow on people. But like I would like to see that conference kind of stay because it's been a great conference.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
it is. And you're going to lose two mainstay names. It's going to be hard to see where's that conference going to be in 5, 10 years without those two teams, you know?
Yeah, actually, speaking of that point, since we've been on the Big 12 right now, another conference that I think is in danger of becoming extinct is the Pac-12. Like because
Yeah, because mm-hmm.
you lost your two biggest cash cows in UCLA and USC, right? So my
Mm-hmm.
thing is, yeah, you're gonna have the Oregon States of the world, but nothing brings Pac-12 into focus than having USC and UCLA. Those are your two
It's true.
biggest things, especially since UCLA, which I can't believe I just figured this out like maybe 5 years ago, is that they play in the Rose Bowl. Like,
Yeah,
so,
they do.
so
That's a
you
big
you
deal. That's
you
like perennial Pac-12. Like that's the heart of
you can't
Pac-12
even
country.
you can't even speak Pac-12 without the Rose Bowl. You know what I'm saying?
True.
So
Agreed.
like I just think that conference is gonna become extinct in a little bit because as good as
There's rumors of
Oregon
Oregon
is,
and Washington too.
yeah, as good as those teams are,
They don't
I
hold the
don't
same value.
know. I don't know if they can carry, the conference like that. And then their TV deal is messing up too. So it's a lot of
Hmm.
factors that go into that. And you can't be just losing teams. You can't lose Arizona, as maybe bottom feeder-esque as they've been over the last 10 years or so. Like you can't really lose those teams. You can't lose the little
No.
guys. You know
They
what I mean?
all add to the overall character of the conference. You lose, you
Exactly.
like. I'm a build on your point. So you're talking about USC is pretty much the equivalent of what Ohio State is to the Big Ten, of
Yep.
what Alabama and LSU is to the SEC.
Yep.
And even if you go out east and you go to the ACC, they're holding the same kind of merit as like a Florida State, as a Miami, teams like that. You lose that, and it's kind of similar to what we said about the Big 12. It's like, man, where do we go? You
Yeah,
know?
where do we go from there? So, like I said, man, the conference realignment is like I said, it's a great thing. It is bringing maybe, excuse me, fan bases that wouldn't get, you know, football a chance. I think UCF going to the Big 12 is like a good thing because they are wide open offense anyway, right?
They
So
fit
I think, you
right
know,
in.
Yep. So I think they'll go really good. But like I said, man, it's interesting
Cincinnati
to
too.
see the landscape of college football is definitely changing, and
Mm-hmm.
we're like I said, we're in a good place. It's just a place of unknown. You know what I'm saying? Like everything has been the same for like the last kind of decade or so, except for a couple teams moving. But these are
Mm-hmm.
seismic shifts. We're talking about blue blood programs leaving big conferences that they've basically built since the beginning of time, so it's interesting to see what happens, going forward.
Agreed.
So, but as we talk about seismic shifts, man, one of the biggest shifts in college football today is a transfer portal. It's drawing legal people out to talk about it. People have, called it unfair. You know what I'm saying? People have called it a good change of scenery. What do you feel about it so far, since we started it?
So, I mean, I'm gonna kind of say, like I said earlier, it's a mixed bag of chips because I view the transfer portal as a good fresh start for certain players, whether it be guys say maybe they've already burned their red shirt or they've had bad injuries and maybe they're going on their last year and it's like, okay, well, maybe I can still compete or I can possibly be a starter somewhere. If the opportunity is there, let me take it. But on the flip side of that, there's not. It's kind of. I think you said something about the other day. It's like the Wild West. It's not structured the way it should. So we look at LSU's doing really good in the portal, just for instance. No bias there. But then you look at Dion goes to Colorado, for instance, and this isn't a knock on him at all, but you pretty much flipped your entire team over and recruited an entire roster from the transfer portal. And I'm not saying there should be restrictions on how many guys you should be able to get through the portal, but at the same time, like there has to be some kind of accountability or some kind of way we can structure this the right way. Because otherwise, it's like, man, a lot of kids are getting the short end of the stick. I mean, especially in that case, it's like that. And it's not saying what he did is unfair, but there has to be some. We need to draw a line in the sand. Okay, this is how we do it under these circumstances and these circumstances. For the most part, I have no problem with the portal. I think the portal is really beneficial, especially when you have teams like, say, in Alabama or us that maybe we're hurting on one or two positions that we don't fully feel comfortable enough with. Maybe a couple of younger guys. We need a veteran to be able to come in, lead that position group, and help us get over the hump. That's completely understandable. But there are a lot of situations you're like, it could probably be used a little bit better or maybe like a little bit less, if that makes sense.
Okay, no, I get that. I get that a lot. To get on to your point, I give you a little pushback on Dion and his transfer portal use. I
Mm-hmm.
watched an interview with him and I think Joel Klatt, who is a former Colorado quarterback, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
So I watched that interview and it kind of shifted my mindset from what I've heard. to really listen to what they were saying, both of them. And Joel asked Deion a question. I'm paraphrasing. He asked him a question on the lines of, "What does this backlash from what you've been doing in the transfer portal mean?" You know what I'm saying? And he shifted focus from the players he was getting to the players he had. You know,
Mm.
and I didn't realize that they lost almost all their games the year before Deion got there. You know, so what Deion was walking into was, I can't keep anybody. You know, I can't keep these players because they're stuck in this 0 and 12 mindset. You know what I'm saying? So I need to take away a lot of this cancer in the locker room. I need to change completely. So when I thought about an 0 and 12 team, or a team losing the majority of their games or whatever, like there's a lot of people in that locker room that are okay with losing, you know?
That's true. We get complacent.
Exactly. So if I'm Dion, I can't go into the next season with these players or the majority of them. I need to pick out who really wants to be here and change the culture, you know?
Mhm.
And over the
It's true.
course of that, you start to find out that a lot of those guys really aren't that good. Sorry, you know, they aren't up to the standard in which Dion sees the program he's trying to build. And when I think about the numbers of the transfer portal that he had, I just think like he just really wants to put the best foot forward for his program. And you know, if that's getting some great players from other schools that are disgruntled, fine. Hey, we're just gonna do it, right? But it's there to use. I just don't think people like the way that he's using it in a sense. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying?
I could agree with you on that.
You
And I think the
know,
media's kind of painted it in a way that might not fully be accurate
yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like
from a
instead of
certain point of
looking at
view.
the bigger picture, like Colorado sucked last year.
They went 1 and
And
11. I mean, you can't really get any worse.
yeah, yeah, like really, really. And we're talking like big blowouts. You know, this is
And
not
that's a
a good team.
Pac-12 conference team. This isn't like a MAC team or a Sun Belt.
Yeah,
That's a Power 5 conference team.
that lost 11, 12 games, right?
And
So
they're not even considered to be the worst team in the conference typically.
exactly.
That's
You know what
another
I'm
thing.
saying? So, you know, you got a real good opportunity to get a place going that really actually had success in the past, has a national championship,
Yep.
has a Heisman winner. You know what I'm saying?
They have a lot of good guys who got drafted out of there. It's
All
not
right. Right. One
impossible.
of the hottest coaches in the NFL right now, Eric Bieniemy, was a top 3 Heisman winner. You know what I'm saying? Heisman finalist, right? So you got some good pedigree there. And I think him just using the transfer portal is just trying to use what's available rather than doing
Mm,
it the other way. Now, I think the transfer portal in a nutshell, for real, is awesome for college football. And as I
mm.
mentioned, it has to be legislated, you know, has to be, you know, because a lot of people using it as a scapegoat to leave. Like, oh, I'm not starting, so I'm leaving. Like, nah,
Exactly.
nah.
Exactly. It don't work like
I
that.
yeah, I think the transfer portal should be used. You should have one chance to use it. I think one chance. You know what I'm saying? To use it. You know, especially if you're an underclassman. If you're an underclassman, you should have one chance to use it. One time.
Mhm.
Now, if you're a graduate transfer, I think, you know,
That would
you
mm.
shouldn't you should be able to use it if you graduate from the school that you transfer from, if that makes sense. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
no, I would have said the same thing. I agree.
Yeah.
That's a justified extra use if I had to say so myself.
You know what I'm saying? Like if you're an underclassman, use it once and you get another use if you graduate from the school you transfer from. You know what I'm saying? Rather than just, oh, I'm just gonna go. You know, like a guy, I remember a guy, Tate Martell, right? Yeah, he
Dude,
was,
he
you see what I'm saying?
yeah,
You already
that's
know
a
what
story in itself.
you already know who I'm talking about. You go to USC, you're a 5-star guy, undersized quarterback, right? All
I think it
right,
was
cool.
Ohio State.
Yeah, right. He
Yeah.
started. He started with Ohio State, right? You're an undersized quarterback, but you're a 5-star guy. Not knocking size, not knocking rating at all, right? But what
Mhm.
I'm saying is, you go to Ohio State and you're competing with the likes of Joe Burrow, Dwayne
Yep.
Haskins, and I want to say they had some other guy there. But these three guys are battling for a spot, right? So you beat out
Mhm.
Joe Burrow by default because he leaves, right? Then you got to
Mhm.
fight against Dwayne Haskins, right? Now, Dwayne Haskins beats you, so you're already second in command, right? You're going to be able to get the spot, right? Dwayne
Mhm.
Haskins leaves, and you think, all right, this is my spot, right? You
And guess
forgot
who transferred in?
Justin Fields is upset, and he wants to use his transfer portal, and he wants to
Yep.
play. So now you got some competition. Now, all right, cool. Up to that point, it's fair, right? All right, you didn't win the starting spot. You've been working hard. Cool. You leave, right? Then
Goes to Miami.
you go to Miami, right? And
Mhm.
you lose out to De'Aaron King, right? De'Aaron King's a baller, man. I'm sorry, you're not really gonna play there. So you try to change positions.
Mhm.
Doesn't work, right? Then you go back into the portal. So you know what I'm saying? Like that's the scenario that I don't like for players to be
Mhm.
going in and committing to these schools and everything. I don't like that. Like that's
They're
why,
going based off of convenience.
right, man. I just think with like I said, with NIL, with transfer portal, things like that, it has to be legislated, man. And I think they should go one transfer portal chance if you're underclassmen, and then you get another one if you graduate from the school that you transferred from, right? That's all I'm saying, man. And I really like, now to go to your point to close like this whole thing, because I know I'm like long-winded, but to
Here you
close
go.
the segment down, I like the transfer portal for the teams that for the players that want an opportunity to increase their draft stock. Like I'll throw out one that changed, I think, everybody's mindset on it. Look at Jamison Williams for Alabama for one
Mhm.
thing. Like going into the transfer portal, really, if you think about it, really didn't seem like a good idea at the moment, right? Your team just lost to the team that you transferred to. So, from an optic standpoint, that doesn't look very good for you.
Mhm.
But when you think about the bigger picture, he had Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, and Smith and Jigba, and Marvin Harrison Jr. all in the receiver room.
A very loaded receiver room.
Exactly. We're talking about 4 studs in that receiver room, right? You're not getting no shine for real. You know what I'm saying? So leaving just seemed like a good thing. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Because for competition reasons, right? But it opened up everybody's eyes to the transfer portal being a viable option to get impact players because of how he played for Alabama. You know, like
Mhm.
he instantly increased his draft stock tenfold completely. I think he went from maybe a late first round pick to the top
A
5
lot of mistakes.
just with that stretch. Like, oh my God, you got a guy that's out here going hard, blowing the top off with defenses. You know what I'm saying? I think he was something that you in the SEC you hadn't even seen in a very long time. Somebody that
Mhm.
just can beat you with their speed alone. I don't need athleticism. I don't need to be that big. I can just
Just
blow the
making
top
him be
off.
open.
Yeah, I can blow the top off your defense anytime. It don't matter what it is. And you got Bryce Young at quarterback too. So you already know you're gonna have some fun. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Not saying Justin Fields wasn't good. Let's not say that at all. But what
Yeah,
I'm
but
saying
it's a
is
whole different place.
a whole different place because you know that defensively you're gonna have some opportunities to play. They're gonna
Mhm.
get off the field. You know what I'm saying? So your opportunities to really continue the ball is gonna be there. Now, unfortunately, he got hurt in the championship game, but I think the injury he got, his draft stock was safe. He was going top 10
He
after.
had already cemented where he was at. Even with it being the knee injury it was, teams already told, okay, this guy's a playmaker. He can get out there and make plays for our team, put us in a better position to win.
Right. So, like I said, I just think
And he's a receiver, too. We're not talking about a quarterback either.
right. Now, quarterback is awesome too. The transfer portal is awesome, man. Like, I mean, look at Joe Burrow going into the transfer portal.
That's the best example right there. A
I
guy
mean,
who never got a chance to show that, a lot of guys didn't even know who he was. And he comes to LSU, he transfers, he looks okay. But then he takes an entire offseason and just gives it his all. And that team was really well put together, obviously. But I mean, and he showed out, had probably the best single season of any quarterback in college football history. But going to your point, I mean, it can really turn somebody's career around. I mean, even if we just back up a little, let's back up 5-6 years. Alvin Kamara was with Alabama,
right, right,
wasn't going to play. And this is early portal. This I don't even know if they were even calling it the portal at this time. Leaves, goes to Tennessee, has a decent year when he falls to like the third round. But I mean, he turned his career completely around compared to just waiting 3-4 years and never seeing the field.
right. You know what I'm saying? So, like I said, I love it. I love Alvin Kamara. I think that's a perfect example. Him and Joe Burrow are great examples of guys just taking their talents, to somewhere else to really broadcast it to a bigger audience. In my opinion,
Mm-hmm. I
I'll
agree.
I'll leave one more comparison. I think of not Joe Burrow, but there was another guy that transferred. God damn. I think of Cam Ward from Washington State, coming from an FCS school to
Mm-hmm.
come to the big leagues. The impact he had at the FCS level, we're talking like maybe 4,000, close to 5,000 passing yards. Now, look,
Maybe.
I understand the competition may not be there, but the fact that you're a gamer, I think can translate. When you
Oh
get a
yeah.
guy, when you get a guy like that, that can come in and really transform your program within a year or so, you know, that can change everything. You know what I'm saying? 4-star, 3-star guy, coming out of high school, goes to such and such a place and, say, hey, I want to go play with the big boys. You know what I'm saying? I think those type of benefits are in the transfer portal in a sense. And I think,
I'll
like
give
I
you
said,
one more.
there's so many positives, there's so many negatives to it. But like I said, I think we're in a good place, you know what I'm saying? So going into the future of the transfer portal, do you feel like this is gonna be something that is forever, or are we just looking at a flash in the pan before the NCAA does something about it?
I don't think it's a flash in the pan. I think it's here to stay. I think going back to what I said earlier, I think it's going to come to a point where somebody's either going to misuse it or you're just going to have an example maybe of where a team gets a bunch of guys that maybe weren't expected to do as much and it turns into something bigger. Uh, yeah, I mean, transferring's always been there,
Right.
but guys used to transfer around as much. And I think now, I mean, I think it's awesome. You think it's awesome. I don't think it's going anywhere, but I would think if I just take a wild guess, and I don't know a whole lot, but in the next 5 years or so, I think they're definitely not going to crack down on it, but I definitely think they're going to take a step back and be like, okay, how can this still benefit everybody, but still be fair and we can regulate it to where it's not going crazy and to where it can benefit the game and the players in a proper manner, if that makes sense.
No, I'm all for it. I'm all for that. I'm all for it. I like that thought process. I think it's not going anywhere. I think it's too many success stories rather than failures for it to not stick around. You know what I'm saying? If it was an all out, SMU paying players or whatever, you know what I'm saying, back in the day, which I think is ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? I think it was
Yeah.
like one of the most ridiculous penalties ever. But that's actually something we can get in on another episode. But I just think it's here to stay. So moving forward, the best segment, my favorite segment of our show so far, our top 5 segment, man. All right, we did quarterbacks last episode. I think it went really good. Sorry for Tommy Frazier out there. If you saw our episode, got your name wrong.
Oops.
I'm sorry. You're
I'm
not Tommy
so
Armstrong. You're Tommy Frazier. You are a awesome player. You're a great player, and I loved your game. So if you ever see this video or that video, I'm sorry. But today our top five segment is centered around running backs. Um, like the running back position has been a part of college football. I mean, think about the Heisman pose, like it's a running back, you know what I'm saying? So it's been a part of the game, man. Some great running backs over the history of the game. But we're gonna go top five running backs of college football all time, regardless of era, Heisman status, whatever. So top five segments. You go first, bro. Let me hear it.
No particular order, but I'm a lot better prepared this time around. I think there's a lot of really good tailbacks.
Man,
Guys that won Heisman's. There's a lot of guys even in the last 10, 15 years or so that I was like, man, I really want to put on this list, but I think accomplishments have a lot to do with it. Team accomplishments, just overall, I think it's an overall body of work kind of thing. So, I
yeah,
mean, I'm not going to go in a particular order.
and I think like when I was looking at my list, I had to include a couple people from this generation, right? Because I didn't see guys like Herschel Walker or whatever. I didn't see a guy like him really play in his prime, right? So it's hard for me to say, oh my God, he's the best, right? But judging off of the highlights, dude was pretty good, right?
Mm-hmm.
so it's hard for me not to say that, right? So when I thought
Mm-hmm.
about putting people on my list from like our generation or new guys or whatever, um, you had to stand off. You had to stand out. Like I had to really say, okay, this guy is one of the best running backs ever, and
Yep.
doesn't get any knowledge at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like I said, I'm interested to see your list. I'm interested. Period. Yeah.
So I've got five, but I do want to throw in like three honorable mentions just to give courteous.
Yeah, I got a
Because a lot of
five
my guys,
A. I got a five
a
A,
lot
a
of my
five
guys, oh
B,
yeah,
and a
I go
five
higher if
C.
I want to.
I got a
Most
five. I got a
guys,
five A, five B, and five C. I promise you. I had to. I couldn't decide which one. I couldn't do it. So it don't surprise you.
so I mean, I've got five. I've got a couple other ones. Most of these guys I've got actually just for the five aren't in this generation. You're looking at probably the nine in between the 80s and 90s, and maybe like one from the 70s. But if I'm going recently, just honorable mention, uh, Leonard Fournette at LSU was a really an animal. What he was able to do with the speed, his ability to run through guys, his ability to catch out the backfield, the guy was an animal. Uh, Another guy who doesn't really get credit, he's obviously a perennial Pro Bowl in the NFL, is Christian McCaffrey. Now, if I'm going to get in my top five, no particular order, I'm going to go Ron Dane from Wisconsin.
Okay. Okay.
Guy
I
ran
like
for
him.
2,000 yards in a season twice. Guy was a freaking Wisconsin's always really known for
We're having
very
some good
talented
backs.
running back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Monte Ball,
Melvin
him.
Gordon.
That's
Yeah. Yeah.
another good one right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Yep. Yep.
I'll throw Herschel in there. Herschel was an animal with Georgia, and
Yeah.
obviously it did translate into the pros, but he was just next level in my opinion.
I think he could have won 3 Heisman in a row, honestly. Like,
Oh, I wouldn't doubt it, and that I think that's a reason why I had to put him there. I mean, you just can't deny greatness.
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
Another one I'm gonna dock is I'll put Ricky Williams top five as well for Texas.
Okay.
Ricky was you got to understand, Ricky. If Ricky wasn't that good, the Saints don't trade their entire draft class to get you. I
Right.
mean, the guy was. He
right.
probably didn't go to the hype fully, but the guy was a good tailback.
I agree.
He put 1,000 yard seasons. He was able to get you 4+ yards a carry. The guy could run the ball really really well. Uh,
He was
Now I
nice.
probably get to the two guys who I think are like one and two, no particular order. You got to throw Archie Griffin in there.
Okay. Okay. I fuck.
Archie Griffin. That's a little bit older out of our time frame, but I mean, you
Ah
can't deny
man. But he
you
got
can't
two
deny
Heisman's
Heisman trophies.
too. So
You can't
hey,
deny it.
hey, if you're talking running backs, my man's was he's He's the GOAT status. He got something that none of them other dudes got. I dominated college football for 2 years, and they gave me the award 2 times. So like, oh,
Now,
I'm the leading rusher. You ain't getting no 2 Heisman's though. That's a perfect end to any argument. I don't care, whatever.
I agree. And the last guy, I mean, most people would put him at one. I'd probably put him at one, but you can't have a 5 list without Barry Sanders.
No, not
You
at all.
can't. Like what the guy could do catching the ball with the shiftiness, the acceleration, the way he's breaking tackles, the way he's getting away from everybody, the way he'd run the ball, the way he'd open up the pass game, like that translates to a lot of guys we see play nowadays. Guys that aren't just one dimensional, guys that can catch the ball at the backfield, guys that can run routes down the field and help your quarterback have an extra, like a pretty much a fallback option. You don't have to always rely on your tight end. You don't always have to rely on your backside receiver. You know what I mean? He definitely revolutionized what tailbacks do nowadays, in my opinion.
I mean, look, he arguably had the greatest running back season, I think, of anybody. Like now we got
Mm-hmm.
like 15 games or something. Like he got 2,000 plus rushing yards without the bowl game, to be honest with you. And he got 2,000 plus in like 11, 12 games, something like that. It was something small, but he was killing. He's out there doing OJ stuff, man. Like how OJ run for 2,000 yards in the NFL in like 10 games. Like, do you understand?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you understand how crazy that sounds? Like,
You really think about it.
he almost had 3,000 rushing yards in one season. Like, that's mind blowing, man. Like, I can't stress that
That's
enough.
the heydays of college football, bro. You don't see that
Like,
kind of stuff no more.
no, like he out here like taking souls, man. Like I think he had 300 yards in one game. Like think about that for a minute. Like a dude
It's a lot.
just
Just
running.
completely took over. You don't need the
Like
quarterback to do anything besides hand it off.
like how many miles is that just to be running on the football field for 300 yards?
Woo! That's
Like
a lot, bro.
that's a lot of miles, man. Putting work on people's turf because that's what it was playing on back then. But
Mm-hmm.
like I ain't got no problem with that, man. None at all. So that's a good list, man. I really like how you put Christian McCaffrey in there, man. I forgot really how good he really was, but my dude did everything. You know what I'm saying? Everything.
He opened up that offense.
I think what hurt him in that Heisman race is the fact that he didn't score a lot of touchdowns. He was getting a whole lot of yards, but he wasn't scoring
Mm-hmm.
a lot of touchdowns. And the reason why Derrick Henry won is because he was changing that scoreboard. They wasn't catching him from behind. So, you end up I'm being honest with you, man.
But I agree. I definitely
Like
agree.
you rush for like 20 touchdowns, something like that, man. And these are not just touchdowns, these are like 80-yard runs. And he's a big guy to be running like that. Crazy, crazy, crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But all right,
What do you hit me
so
with your best shot, bro? Let's see what you got.
all right. So I told you I had a 5A, B, and C, right?
Okay.
So I couldn't decide between these guys because they're all interchangeable. But 5C for me is I'm gonna go with Saquon Barkley. Like
Yeah, that's a really good one.
he was one of the most electric running backs I've ever seen. And he was breaking the mold for those running backs that, obviously in the NFL, running backs becoming devalued. But he was such a good guy that you can't not put him in your top 5 because he was electric. He took everything. And I think I put him on my list specifically because he played in that Fiesta Bowl and he didn't have to. That stood
Mm-hmm.
out with me more than anything. And that's why Leonard Fournette's not in my list because he didn't play in that bowl game, even though his team
Mm-hmm.
was in it, but I think it stood out for me a lot because he risked everything, playing in that game and, he did and he balled out and they won because of him. So that stood out for me. I mean, obviously he had the yards, he had the highlight plays, everything, All American, whatever. He did everything, so I put him on my list. 5B, I can't be a Bama fan without having my man Derrick Henry on there. I love Mark Ingram. He's my guy. He started the Bama, running back tree in a sense, as far as draft picks are concerned, right? So he really did his thing. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, we had some great running backs. Sean Alexander comes to mind.
Good
Derek
one.
Lassick was awesome.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? Obviously, I said Mark Ingram. We had a guy, Glenn Coffey. He really started the Nick Saban
And
era.
nobody talks about Glenn Coffey, bro.
That's what I'm
Nobody
saying.
talks about
So
him.
so we had some really good running backs at the school, man. But Derrick Henry put the stamp on it. Like, this is one of the schools you need to get a running back from. I mean, I don't
Mm.
think anybody in the SEC had 2,000 yards rushing. I don't think ever. I think everybody had a lot of rushing yards, but I think he was the first one to eclipse 2,000
I
in a
wouldn't
season.
doubt it. I
Huh?
think you're right.
Yeah, so like the running backs we've seen in this league, to be the first to do that, and I think it was a dominating season. I hate to say it, but Leonard Fournette's Heisman ended the same day Derek Henry Heisman run began. Okay, it
Yeah.
was a rough night for him, but like it was trending downward anyway, because after that game against Auburn, um, we had like 2,250 yards or something like that. Like every performance after that kind of went down. Like it was a 250, like 170, 130 or whatever against Troy or whatever, right? It wasn't pretty. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, man, he's trending backwards. Like if it was going in reverse, I think, oh snap, okay, now we got something, right? But
Mm-hmm.
because they was budding, and it was great game, highlight, game or whatever. But Derrick Henry just showed out, man. You know what I'm saying? And then to end that year, having, almost 300 yards against Auburn, like we have talking like 270, like that's wild, man. I told the guy, he's like, man, Derrick Henry ain't nothing. I was like, I bet he get 300. Bullshit. Bullshitting. I bet he get 300. Yeah. He like, nah, man. 270 that night. So he's like, yeah. I was bullshitting. I wasn't even serious. I was like, give me 150 and we good. He
Hey,
went,
anything's possible when you got a tailback like that, man.
yeah. So and then 5A is Marshall Falk, man. I think the biggest snub as far as running backs is concerned. If we're talking Heisman, I'm talking he almost had, I think he had 2,000. So talk about backs being the architect for backs today. I think it starts with Marshall Falk, man. He can do everything: pass, protect, catch, run, obviously. So he could do everything, man. And I think he was, if we talk NFL, he was responsible for kind of breaking in Peyton Manning a lot.
Yeah.
People don't understand how important he was, man. He could control pass protection because he knew how to do it. Peyton Manning really didn't have to do that for real. And he kind of eased
Mm-hmm.
Peyton Manning in, just let him focus on, being a quarterback, because you got a good running back there. You can do a lot, man. He's almost your last line of defense, what I'm saying, especially for a free runner. So like I said, I think he was a snub. I would not have given that Heisman to Gino Toretta. I don't even know who that is for real, but guess what? He won, and I thought it was crazy, but whatever,
Mm-hmm.
right? Pac-12 after dark, nobody was watching. I think it was stupid. But hey, whatever. He won, right? So he's not 5. 4. Going Archie Griffin, man. I think Archie Griffin, I watched some highlights of him, man. He was so smooth, slicing through those Big Ten defenses.
That was smooth.
Like it was simple, like they wasn't even there, But you're on my list when you get 2 Heisman's, man. Ain't nobody got that. I think that puts you almost on everybody's top 5 list. I don't care if you're 5, 1, whatever. You're on the list. 2 Heisman's, and really the second one was better than the first, if you ask me. Like, so I think he's on my list, right? So 3, I got Bo Jackson, Auburn. I mean, talk about,
Yeah, that's what I want. That's definitely one that
so
I should
I
have.
gotta I have to go. Have to go. Bo Jackson and Auburn. I hate Auburn. It hurts me to say this, but hurts me to say this. But yeah, yeah. He was really good, man. He was good. And he torched a lot of defenses, including ours. So, I thought he was really good, man. But fandom aside, man, talk about athletes, man. He could everything you wanted as a running back, fast, strong, everything. He could do it all, man. And to be in his career to be playing both sports in college, I think that's awesome. I think people should do that even more nowadays. If you're good at one, you should play the other. But we're in a different era. But I thought he was really good, man, and he did a lot, man. So I think if you're talking his NFL career, obviously it was cut short because of injury. But I think it wouldn't have even got to that point had Tampa Bay did him right. People don't understand that Tampa Bay had the first pick in the draft, in the NFL draft, and he just wanted to play baseball for his senior year. And they, you know, told him that he was going to be able to, and he tried to, and they deemed him ineligible because he had talked to, I guess he had did a private jet or whatever, so it messed him up, and he didn't go to Tampa Bay. They drafted him, but he didn't go there, and the rest is history, right? But that could have changed the course of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Think about that.
Mhm.
Think about that foreshadowing for another episode, but just think about that for a minute. All right, so
Mhm.
number two on my list is can't go wrong. We just talked about it, Barry Sanders. Barry Sanders, obviously, almost 3,000 yards in one season. He's a Heisman winner, drafted by the Lions. Rest is history, man. He's on everybody's list, maybe Mount Rushmore of running backs. Like, it doesn't matter, college, pro, shit, high school. He probably on the list, right? So,
Mhm.
already said what he's done, right? Number one, obviously, Herschel Walker. I don't think we're talking running backs. I don't think you can say much about him in college, man. I think he was responsible for them winning that national championship that they've held in so much regard. 1980, it was all him, damn near. And yeah, he could have won 3 Heisman's in a row, man. That speaks dividends for you coming into the league balling. You know what I'm saying?
Longevity and consistency.
Yep. Like, that's just star power, man. Like when they say you could have won 3 Heisman's in a row, you're damn good. So he's number one on my list, man. That's my order, man. What'd you think?
No, I mean we agree on most of them, and I mean I would have put Bo. It was really, if we were making a top 10, he would have definitely been there. And I do agree to your point, pretty much how you said Saquon played and Leonard didn't. That's kind of a deal breaker with me because like I don't like when that's kind of where we're at right now in college football. Like guys will, I mean, good prime example. Like let's look at Jamar Chase. Like sat out an entire season during the COVID year. I mean, and Kayshon Boutte had a really good year based on that. But like just sitting that's definitely a turnoff for me.
Yeah,
And it
but I
showed
mean,
where
COVID was different though. Like
yeah,
that was life or death in a situation, man. People just kind of went for their own health and consideration. You know
mhm.
what I'm saying? But like for Leonard to not play, that kind of messed with me a little bit, man.
Yeah, I agree
I
with you. I
get it.
think you
I
should have.
get it. He's a top guy, and you don't want to do it. But your
But
boys
just play minimum
played,
at
man.
least.
Your boys played. You know what I'm saying? Your boy Jamal Adams played, and he was damn good.
All them dudes played.
Yeah, all of them played, man. For you not to play, and I don't know. I just didn't agree with it, and that's a kind of deal broke for me because I would have gave him one of my fives because he was damn good. You know what I'm saying? But no, I can't do that. But like I said, man, I love your list. Loved it, especially with Christian McCaffrey. That was like boom for me. I was like, I forgot all about him. You know what I'm saying? But other than that, we kind of overlap, man. RG Griffin, Barry Sanders, Herschel Walker. I think we had a good list battle there. You know what I'm saying? So, um, but yeah, man. Last segment, closing arguments, man. So, we kind of bleed into the next episode a little bit. So obviously the SEC is the premier conference, obviously with Texas, Oklahoma joining. But we got 1 year for that. So what's your thought process on them joining, man? Like how do you what do you feel about that?
From a conference standpoint, I think it helps solidify the SEC that much more. The SEC is already the premier conference. Nobody can debate that. The competition is there, the talent is there. For the most part, the coaching is there. You're going to go and you're going to add maybe two of the most prolific, like some of the most prolific teams of all time. Texas has got great history. Oklahoma's got great history. That's a perfect conference now. Besides maybe some teams that be like you need bottom feeder teams, like say your Vanderbilts, and I don't want to say Missouri, but sometimes I feel like Missouri. But
But that's okay. That's okay, man. Because
but I
we
think
all right. We
it's
all right.
benefit. I think it's going to benefit the conference as a whole, but they're going to have a reality check. It's not the Big 12 anymore. You're going into a conference where Arkansas can be 2-8 and they can come into your house and blow you out by 40 points. I mean, they did it to Texas last year, the year before. They blew them out by 30, 40 points. Anybody can beat anyone on any given Saturday. It doesn't matter if it's Ole Miss. It don't matter if it's Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, LSU, Georgia. It doesn't matter. If you don't come to play, the talent is there. If you're
Yeah.
not ready to go, you're
Like,
going to get blown out the water. Now, I think there will be growing pains. I don't think Texas is going to – I don't know how they're going to do the divisions, or I think they may have agreed in the SEC to, like, do away with divisions but keep rivalries. I don't know the full story. I had to do my research. But I don't see – if I had to pick one of the two that have more immediate success, I'd probably say Oklahoma. I'm not the biggest believer in not Steve Sarkisian. Who is Texas?
Venables.
No, that's Oklahoma. Texas is
No, Texas is Steve Sarkisian. Yeah.
yeah. I'm not the biggest believer in. They've got great talent. He's definitely done really well. They've done really well with recruiting. But if I have to go and say, okay, one of these two is going to have more success route, I'm going to have to say Oklahoma.
Okay. Okay. All right. I'm gonna say it's a slightly positive thing. I mean, obviously it's positive because we're broadening the Southeastern Conference. Like we've already been into Missouri. We got into Texas with Texas A&M earlier. So you're just broadening the geographic landscape of the SEC. So now you're deepening your stronghold in Texas and you're deepening your stronghold in the middle conferences um, with Oklahoma. So it's some good players there. Obviously, Texas recruits in Oklahoma and vice versa. So other schools are gonna be able to go into those territories, right? So it just
Mm-hmm.
brings more eyes to the conference, man. It's becoming a bigger conglomerate, man. That's where the NFL players get drafted every year. It never fails. Last decade, the SEC's had the most percentage of players in NFL. So now you're just broadening that reign of terror, man, that we finna put on college football, man, because with the expanded playoffs, man, you guaranteeing at least 4 teams from the SEC getting in there every year, like hands down, because
Based on alone.
you're gonna have Bama in there, you're gonna have Georgia in there, you're gonna have LSU in there. Now, give or take, whichever one of those teams loses first in the thing, that'll kind of determine the rankings, whatever. But even a 2-loss SEC team is still in the top 10.
Yeah,
And you're
because the
not
quality
gonna
of schedule is there.
and that's my second point. So now you're guaranteeing a spot. And I guarantee you they're gonna try to put a group of 5 team in there because they might be undefeated, But now
Mm-hmm.
with Texas and Oklahoma in there, what you gonna say about strength of schedule now? If
They're gonna definitely try something silly with that. Like they're gonna say, "Oh well," they're not gonna say it out loud. They're gonna be, "Oh, the SEC's in plainer terms. The SEC is dominating. We can't put Bama, LSU, Georgia, and just say if Jimbo gets it together, we can't put A&M in there." It's like, "Oh, they're doing too good.
we can't do it because
Because we're
they
gonna win
lost all
every
their
year."
game. Like, nah, bro, keep all
Nah,
that.
you expanded
Strength
it.
of schedule is the reason why Bama didn't get in one year, and it's the reason why Ohio State didn't get in there one year. So now,
Mm-hmm.
strength of schedule, what you gonna say about it now? Because the Big Ten got USC and UCLA. So now they're playing tougher teams on road
Yep.
trips back and forth. So now you can't really say that. In the SEC, now you can't say we got Texas and Oklahoma. So now that's one extra team for each person to play. What if they play both of them in one year? It's happened. It's happened. You know what I'm saying? So now, like I said, as far as strength of schedule, now all those teams is getting in there regardless. So you can't keep us out. SEC is probably going to dominate this new thing. What we going to go to? 16? No. So, it's not happening. You know, so it's not
Yeah.
happening. It's
It's gonna
going
be
to
like March
happen.
Madness. You never know.
Exactly. So it's going to be madness. So my last point about them joining is rivalries, man. It's some rivalries that are returning, man. Oklahoma, Missouri was a big one. Oklahoma,
Mm-hmm.
Texas was a big one.
Yep.
Texas A&M, that was a big one. You know what I'm saying? Arkansas, Texas is actually a big one from the Southwest
Oh
Conference.
yeah, that's a good one.
So, what I'm saying? LSU, Arkansas has always been there, so that's not really one. But Arkansas, Oklahoma, kind of the four corner thing. They all been in there. So that's a good one. So like I said, man, some good rivalries coming back that are being reinstated. So I think that's a good thing for college football because it's been a while since we had those matchups, specifically Missouri, Oklahoma, because the border rivalry and talking Big 12
That
stuff.
used to be a
That,
good one
that
when Oklahoma had Bradford and Missouri had Chase Daniel and guys like that. Like that was a battle every year. People don't talk about how good the Big 12 was at that point, and people don't talk about how good Missouri was in the Big 12 at that point. They were competing with Texas and Oklahoma, Texas Tech, all those teams every
right,
year.
right. Back then, it was only like a couple athletes away every time.
Mhm.
Every
Agreed.
time. So, and they went toe to toe with them. You know what I'm saying? So that's like I said, man, that's a good conference right now. And we the flag bearer, man, for everything. Everything you want to talk about it. We talk about money. Ain't nobody got more money than the SEC. We talk about competition. It's the best competition, top to bottom. Even throw Vandy in there, because Vandy can beat you too. People understand, man. Vandy can beat you. If you don't show up, you will be beat by
They
Vandy.
beat Kentucky last year when they were heavily unfavored.
See what I'm saying? So even the bottom feeders, man. So you want to talk about coaches? SEC got the best coaches in the game. You know what I'm saying?
We
And
could sit here and list all of them. I mean, most of them have all got good credentials. Even the bottom feeder coaches still aren't bad coaches.
yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like I said, man, it's the reason why Will Muschamp got fired from South Carolina because he couldn't win. You know what I'm saying? But look who he was going against. You know what I'm saying? So, like I said, man, but that's another thing we can get into coaching in the next episode. But like I said, man, SEC is great, great conference, and we're definitely on top of college football, man. Talk about it. You know what I'm
Agreed.
saying? But this is episode 2, man. Episode 2, man. It was awesome, man. We had some great topics. Great topics, man. I love arguing with you a little bit. Talking sports is so fun, man. Having somebody that really gets college football like me, so I enjoy it, man, and appreciate you joining me today, man. Let's keep this going. Anything you gotta
Yes,
say,
sir.
man, before we go?
All I can tell is that people watch and just be patient. We're working out the kinks. We're taking our time, trying to really understand each other's perspective, as well as trying to give you guys what you want. I don't find nowadays they have too many sources of guys where you can sit there and watch and really be entertained, learn, and really just be able to get a good college football experience. So we're trying to give you guys that. Just be patient, stay along for the ride, and it'll be worth it in the end.
All right. Couldn't have said it better, man. But all right, man. Like I said, great show. Episode 3 coming soon.
Yes,
All right,
sir.
all right, bro. Later.
Yes, sir.